For 2 decades, the name Neymar has meant one thing: magic. But in 2025, the script flipped. The dazzling footwork and impossible goals were replaced by a new, more brutal narrative: the unrelenting fight against his own body. They called his return to Santos a homecoming, a fairy tale ending written in the Brazilian sun. But behind the celebratory headlines lay a devastating truth: a career-threatening injury cycle that would test his will, his wealth, and his very right to footballing legend status. This isn't just a comeback story, it's a high-stakes thriller where the hero's greatest opponent is time itself. Welcome to Luxe Legends, where power, glory, and legacy clash. Number 1. Has any footballer's life ever been a more perfect collision of brilliance and chaos? Neymar's global footprint, from his record-breaking transfer fees to his immense personal brand, is built on a foundation of genius. But that genius has always been accompanied by a whirlwind of drama, scrutiny, and physical fragility. Therefore, his current chapter at Santos is less a relaxing retirement and more a tense, final examination of his legacy. Did the prodigal son return to Santos purely out of sentiment? His move back to his boyhood club in early 2025, following a highly lucrative but injury-marred stint with Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia, was pitched as a romantic finale. But it came immediately after recovering from the most devastating injury of his career, a torn ACL and meniscus in 2023, a brutal setback that forced him to miss the majority of the previous season. Therefore, his much-hyped homecoming was laced with enormous financial risk for Santos and a monumental physical challenge for the star himself. How could a player earning almost $100 million annually struggle so deeply with his fitness? Despite the world-class medical attention his $420 million empire can afford, 2025 has been a cruel continuation of the injury curse. After the initial euphoria, he quickly suffered a thigh injury, limiting his time on the pitch. But this newest rectus femoris muscle injury, sidelining him since September 2025, has highlighted a worrying pattern of physical decline. Therefore, it casts a dark shadow over the negotiations for his contract extension and his chances for one final dance on the global stage. Number 2. Is the true measure of Neymar's current status found not in his goals, but in his grueling rehabilitation? The reality of his 2025 season is one of repeated setbacks, a battle fought not against defenders, but against the weakness in his own muscles. He returned to the pitch with flashes of brilliance, showing the old flair and creativity that defines his legend, but the appearances were fleeting. But the inability to consistently stay fit, evidenced by multiple injuries since his return, forced the Santos board to put contract extension talks on hold despite the expiration date looming in December 2025. Therefore, the narrative shifted from a fairy tale return to a serious financial and sporting dilemma for his beloved club. Could the emotional burden of leading a struggling club be adding to the physical toll? His limited appearances coincided with Santos fighting against relegation in the Brazilian Serie A, placing an unimaginable weight of expectation on his shoulders every time he stepped onto the pitch. But the club president, Marcelo Teixeira, publicly confirmed he wouldn't be back until late 2025, potentially December, as the team fought its final battles. Therefore, the man meant to be the savior could only watch from the sidelines. A frustrating reality that fuels both internal doubts and external scrutiny. What does the greatest national team manager in the world see in an injury-plagued star? The rumors swirling around Neymar's future aren't just about his club, but about the Seleção. Carlo Ancelotti, the Brazilian national team coach, has publicly kept the door open for the forward's return to the national team for the 2026 World Cup. But Ancelotti was brutally clear that the decision hinges entirely on Neymar regaining full and consistent fitness by early 2026, not on his reputation or past glory. Therefore, the pressure is immense, transforming his recovery into a sprint against time to secure his place in what would surely be his final World Cup. Number 3. How has the immense fortune accumulated by Neymar allowed him to weather this professional storm? The sheer scale of Neymar's financial empire, with an estimated net worth of over $420 million, provides a fortress against the anxieties of his injury layoff. This wealth wasn't built just on record-breaking transfers from Barcelona to PSG and then to Al Hilal, but it is continuously swelled by a massive portfolio of endorsements, lucrative business ventures like his NR Sports Company and smart real estate investments across the globe. Therefore, while his body rests, his financial machine operates with flawless efficiency, placing him among the world's highest-paid athletes despite his limited playing time. Is the Neymar brand bigger than the player himself? His business acumen is as sharp as his dribbling skills. He has massive endorsement deals with global giants like Puma, Red Bull, and his new line of low-alcohol cocktails and zero-alcohol mocktails, Play by Ney. But the most telling sign of his power is the influence of his inner circle, the Tois, a carefully curated entourage of friends and advisors whose roles range from organizing leisure to managing key business dealings. Therefore, the luxury and stability of his personal life remains untouched, creating a stark and glamorous contrast to the injury rehabilitation. Can a player maintain his mystique while living a life of ultra-luxury? His residences, from the opulent mansion in Brazil to his former homes in Paris, are not just houses, they are compounds, blending modern luxury with practical spaces for his large family and entourage. He demanded a 25-room house and multiple luxury cars during his Saudi stint, a detail that perfectly encapsulates the Luxe Legends status he commands. But this highly public, extravagant lifestyle often draws as much criticism as his on-field antics, feeding into the narrative of a talented star prioritizing pleasure over professionalism. Therefore, the constant balancing act between being an elite athlete and a global celebrity remains the central defining conflict of his entire career. Number 4. What role does family play in grounding a man whose life is a global spectacle? Despite the public drama and the constant scrutiny, Neymar's core remains his close-knit family, a crucial anchor in his tempestuous life. His father, Neymar Santos Sr., has been instrumental in managing his son's career and finances since the beginning, often taking the heat for controversial decisions. But the most consistent and meaningful relationship he maintains is with his children, including his son, Davi Luca, whom he co-parents with model Carolina Dantas, and his baby daughter, Mavi. Therefore, the love and responsibility of fatherhood provide a profound, humanizing counterpoint to the relentless demands of his public persona. How do the personal dynamics of his life interact with his professional uncertainty? Rumors about his romantic life are constant tabloid fodder, but it is the stability of his parental role that truly defines his personal happiness. He is often seen dedicating his achievements to his children, but the current injury crisis and the subsequent uncertainty over his contract and international future put immense strain on his carefully managed personal ecosystem, forcing his inner circle to work harder than ever to insulate him from the external pressures. Therefore, his comeback is not just for himself, but for the entire Neymar Incourage machine that relies on his presence on the pitch. Is Neymar's legacy ultimately tied to the yellow shirt of Brazil? For a Brazilian player, the World Cup is the ultimate currency of legend, and for Neymar, the 2026 tournament in North America represents the final opportunity to lead his nation to glory and silence any lingering doubts about his place in the all-time pantheon. But the string of injuries, especially the devastating ACL tear and the subsequent thigh setbacks, have cast serious doubt on his physical ability to deliver the explosive performances required at that level. Therefore, the coming months of rehabilitation are the most critical of his life. A final, intense chapter where preparation must conquer fragility.